Alright, welcome MegaWhale team to another video. Today's video is going to be about Sol. We're doing a technical analysis for Solana. We're talking about the short term, the long term, the near term, the future, everything, all you can think of, we've been talking about it in today's video. So if you want to find out what we think is going to happen, where we think the price is going, and why, stay tuned, stick around to the end of the video, and I hope we can answer those questions for you. As always, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. Like, follow, subscribe. Links to our Twitter and our Telegram in the bio. Let's go straight into it. So we're starting on that daily chart, and we're looking at the macro to start with. What we can see is that $160 point is our major long-term horizontal resistance. We would need to break above that point for me to be very, very confident that we're going to continue to a new high. So we're going to keep that on the chart for today. We'll leave that red line there so you can keep it, but that would be called our trigger point. So we're just going to quickly leave a little annotation here, and we're going to say bullish trigger, bullish macro trigger, and this isn't going to be a bottom. This is not a reversal. I can't spell. This is just a point of interest. If we break above this point, we would expect a rally and a push back into that $200 range, potentially $250, even higher. So that is something we're keeping on our chart for the long term, and we're going to keep it there. And we're just going to keep an eye on it, because when we do break that point, it's going to be a very strong buyer signal for Sol, and we can get back in the market and back into this coin. In saying that, the whole point of this video, and I guess why everyone here is watching, is the question is how low can it go and where should I buy in the short term? And we're going to answer that question in a little bit, but there's a lot to cover for Sol. It's a very interesting chart, and it's a huge coin. There's a lot has happened on this chart and for this coin in the last few weeks. Let's take a look at the market cap. So first and foremost, Solana reached an $80 billion market cap. Now, $80 billion market cap for an altcoin is phenomenal. That's absolutely massive, right? It's huge. If you guys don't know how big that is, it is insane. It is insanely huge. $80 billion market cap. We have since dropped around 62 or 63%. We are down at now 28 billion market cap, which is still massive, guys. 28 billion is still massive. But I've said this before, the larger, or better yet, the more a coin moves up, all right, if it has a 2,000% gain or whatever, 4,000% gain, we can expect a huge drop as well. All right, so we're seeing that with Solana. We went all the way up, guys, from like a few dollars to $267, $268, and we've crashed a significant amount since then, 69%. And a lot of other altcoins have also crashed, but it's not taking away from the fact that Solana market cap wise, a lot of money has been wiped off this coin. We went from 77 billion to 28, nearly 27. That's nearly 49 to 50 billion dollars has been wiped off this coin since the start of November. All right, which is massive. Anyway, let's take a look at this macro. We do have our gray zones here, which are our potential entry points. These are zones of interest that we're looking for a potential bottom and reversal in, meaning that we're not actually looking to buy here. We're keeping an eye on these points to be a possible sign of a reversal. If we expect a reversal to occur, we would expect it to occur within these boxes, within these gray boxes. So when the price enters these gray boxes, that is when we've got all our eyes on this coin. We're looking at this coin, we're trying to analyze it, we're making sure we don't miss anything, and we're going to be expecting a reversal to occur within these zones. And then when that reversal occurs and we've got confirmation of that reversal, that is when we'll get that entry signal and that buyer signal to jump on in this coin. I hope that makes sense. There's a bit of a difference between just buying and having an entry point, and then having this zone of interest. And it's more or less this zone of interest right now. So I'll show you is $70 to $80. That is our first zone of interest. And our second one is going to be $46 to $56. Those are our two zones of interest. If we do drop below, all right, if we do drop below $47 or $46, it'll be catastrophic for Sol. We will see a huge drop down, maybe to that sub $10 range or even $12. I'm not even going to cover that in today's video. It's too far away. There's too much that needs to happen before that happens. But just keep on mind, if we do ever see anything drop below $46, we will see a significant bleed for Sol. It will crash down to around $12, $14, $13. All right. We're not going to go into that too much, but keep it in mind. So what we're looking for Sol, before we get into any chart analysis, I'm just going to map out what I would expect to see. I would expect to see some sort of bleed downwards and bottom out in this range, a retest and continuation. You'd be buying on that retest, or we would see exactly the same thing occur down on this lower range and a retest continuation from here. This would be your entry point for Sol. If we take a look at the chart and we draw in our trend lines, 1 second, from our local high, our retest at this point here, and drop down. So our retest was here, local high, that was our end of December retest, and obviously we got rejected on the 50 SMA, since then we crashed massively, unable to retest that trend line again. Of course, there's a lot of selling volume for Sol. There's been hardly any relief at all for Sol. There's been no relief whatsoever, it's just crashed. Even in this last 24 hours, there's been very, very little amount of relief for Sol. We've seen a 10% rise, and that's pretty insignificant compared to the amount it's actually dropped. If we look at this drop here, from that, it was 40%, we didn't even see a quarter of that reclaimed, not even for a brief moment, and it's already back below on a new daily candle, a new low. What I would expect to see is a retest of this trend line at some point. This would be my point of interest. So this trend line, I would be waiting for myself personally. I've got no interest in catching a bottom for Sol. I would rather enter this trade once I've got a confirmation of a new trend forming. I'd be waiting for some kind of retest of that, a break of that trigger, and continuation. My entry would be right here. So that is what I'm looking for on Sol. Let's dive into the technicals. Let's speak about what the chart is telling us, and more or less how we can use these technicals to predict what's happening on that short term. So let me bring up my, let's go RSI and MACD to start with. So straight away on the RSI, we can see a relatively strong pattern, a relatively strong descending pattern here. We got that resistance line we can draw right in. Again, it's mimicking what we're seeing on this chart here with that early retest. Obviously, we had that bearish divergence. We can draw that bearish divergence in. So from this point, 8th of September to November, which was here, we have that bearish divergence, which indicated a drop downwards. Since then, we've been traveling and still haven't even retested this trend line. But at some point, like I said, we will retest that trend line, and this trend line here would extrapolate up to this chart and be this trend line here. So once we retest that, we would expect a retest of this trend line. We are oversold, but like I said before, being oversold absolutely means nothing. You can remain oversold for a long period of time. We would wait for a push and break above the 30% on the RSI before we consider any kind of significant move to occur. Let's move to the 3-day chart. 3-day chart, we still have no relief on that MACD. Still a lot of negative sell pressure going on. No positive buy pressure coming in at the moment. RSI is kind of flattening out, but I would expect that to just be a result of that recent price surge. If we do continue downwards, this will actually straighten out again and probably drop below 30 into that oversold territory. Let's move to a 7-day chart. 7-day chart, we are on new lows on RSI. This is quite an important thing to think about. We are actually on new lows here for the RSI. We haven't been below 44 on RSI since inception on this Binance chart. We can see we are now currently ranging at around 40. So how low can this go? It can definitely go lower. We've dropped below about 50 SMA. We already know how important that 50 SMA is, guys, on that weekly chart. We've talked about it a lot on Bitcoin. We showed you what happened when we dropped the 50 SMA. It was bad news. So expecting something similar to happen here. So that's the long term, guys. I think we're going to see lower levels, but at the same time, we did touch that zone of interest already. So will we bounce from here? We need a bit more confirmation, but expect to see lower. I wouldn't be buying yet. I'd be waiting to see what happens. I think the next few days are going to be really important. If we can kind of reclaim this zone here, and if we can get a new candle above 99, back over 100, I'd be a little bit more confident in the short term. I think I'd be looking at this coin with more of a optimistic point of view, and a bit more optimism for a move upwards to retest this trend line. If we do actually get back over 100, something like this could definitely occur, since we did already test. Keep it in mind, we've already tested this zone of interest at 80. All right, 81, 80. We've already retested that, so we'll stick to our hypothesis of a move upwards. Sorry, I can't speak tonight. Been speaking all day. So yeah, keep that in mind, guys. Let's take a look at some more stuff on the short-term time frame. Let's go to the 4-hour chart. Bring up the Ichimoku cloud, one of my favorite indicators to use to predict overall trend and momentum. We can see the Ichimoku cloud is still indicating that we are pushing sideways. let's change our lagging span. There we go. We had an entry point over here, short-term entry point, didn't really mean anything. We're still under a cloud, still under a conversion line, still under the baseline. Not a lot is happening on the 4-hour chart. Again, if we extrapolate it up to a larger time frame, we're going to see more or less exactly the same thing. It's going to be more or less showing that we are in downtrend, we are pushing sideways, and we're not really seeing much. But if we do drop down to a smaller time frame, we may see some more interesting information that we can't see quite on that larger time frame. We are pushing up into the clouds, the price is consolidating and actually getting closer, and we're pushing sideways, which is really nice to see. Again, you can see that $100 level on the chart is acting as a short-term horizontal resistance, and if we do break above that short-term horizontal resistance, we could actually see a move upwards. So keep that in mind, guys. Something to definitely look forward to. Definitely keep it on your radar, and we'll be updating you guys, of course, with this one. But there's definitely potential in this chart. I'm just not confident at the exact point in time, and I'm definitely not confident right now is the perfect time to buy. But it is showing signs of some bullishness, but again, it's too early to tell. We're in that kind of middle ground at the moment between, we're in this chop zone basically, between this resistance at 100 and this support in that 80 to 70 zone. We can kind of push sideways and we can bleed out the market and shake people out before a significant move occurs. So I wouldn't be buying until we either reclaim and push over 100 or find some reversal, find a confirmation of a reversal within either of these two zones. So where do I think Solana's actually going to be heading in that longer term time frame? If we assume the bullish pattern, I would assume Solana could definitely reach all-time highs again. But with the state of the market, I think it's more likely than not that Solana will come on down initially first. We'll have to do another analysis when that occurs. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Today's video was a little bit of a different technical analysis. We didn't go through as many technical indicators. I think the chart is just too compelling. I think the chart tells us enough information. We don't need to dive too far into the technicals. I think this is quite an obvious chart. It's had a very significant drop down. It's coming down to these two major support zones and these zones of interest, and it's under that psychological resistance as well as that short-term horizontal resistance of $100. And I think it's very, very obvious what you should be doing now, and that's just waiting for either that break of the 100 or that retest, and wait for the confirmation of a reversal within one of these two zones of interest. Obviously with these large coins, they move up a lot and it's dropped a lot. Of course, nearly $50 billion has been wiped off this coin, and it's still got $28 billion market cap, and a lot more can come off this coin before we see a bottom. Alright guys, if you liked the video, remember, like, comment, subscribe, comment below. If you've got any questions, of course, feel free to leave them. I'm always happy to go through and answer as many questions as I can. Just try to keep them relevant to Solana. If you've got any suggestions on what videos you'd like to see next, you can contact me on Telegram, or you could leave them in the comments below. I'll see you in the next video.